And we're back with another episode of the Lakers Fast Break Podcast. This NBA Observations, everyone. It's Gerald Glassford coming right back at you here from Lakers Fast Break, Pop Culture Cosmos, where we cover the latest news and trends in pop culture each and every week, twice a week, wherever you get your podcasts. I just dropped a new one with my good friend John Orlando, where we discussed the state of pro wrestling for all the major wrestling promotions. So go ahead and check it out right now on the Pop Culture Cosmos, wherever you get your podcasts. Also, as well, Inside Sports Fantasy Football. Sean Grice, the guys from Domination Sports Nation, and I discuss the winners and losers in the NFL draft because, we can already do that because we all can foresee the future for all these NFL players right there for you, only 1 week in to their NFL careers. So go ahead and hear our thoughts, of course, at Inside Sports Fantasy Football. Good friends, Lakerholics.com. I know Tom is freaking out because he can't post right now. They're having issues, so I do apologize for that. I guess I've been seeing emails for the past few hours in regards to the IT department back and forth trying to get that fixed. So hopefully you'll stay patient. But check out the Lakerholics crew tomorrow at 10 a.m. on Saturday here on the Lakers Fast Break. So if they can't post anything, Laker Tom will just talk you to death tomorrow at 10 a.m. So look out for that. We've also got possibly a nightcap tonight. I don't know what time it is. I've not heard from Joe yet. I will text him during our conversation with Alfred today to see what time Joe and Henry and Sean want to celebrate the firing of Darvin Ham once again. So we'll go ahead and figure that out for you on a nightcap. But our good friends, John Costa, please feel better. I know he's under the weather, but once he heard that Darvin Ham got fired, instantly, that's just like medicine for the soul for as far as him feeling better. Go ahead and check him out at Lakers Corner and Clutch Talk. Stone Hansen, he's happy while he's projecting the NBA draft prospects at report_, on Twitter. So he's a happy man because he has been saying Darvin Ham from day one was not the right choice. So he's got out there. Plus our good friends, Lakers in 5, Empire Jeff TV, Daniel Berry Sports Highlights, and John McKalian channel. Support all these great channels. And of course, support everything that we do here at the Lakers Fast Break. But also support our good friend indeed. He is a man, the myth, the legend behind some of the great articles that you can find right now at OrlandoMagicDaily.com, plus all the other sports and sports teams that he covers out there. He is a roving sports reporter indeed. He is a good man, and hopefully you will check out his work there, plus everything that he does here. UNLV 1990, there you go. Go Rebs, running Rebs, right in the middle of Tarkanian, that whole era. I remember Kick Out, Channel 9, Chick Hearn would actually talk about, actually go ahead and do the play-by-play for the games. You had Loyola Marymount, one of my favorite teams I've ever watched. They were playing. That was at the height of their Paul Westhead, the mad scientist career. Yes, absolutely rocking the hat indeed. It is Alfred Ezman. Alfred, great to have you here. I know on the news front, just very light. Nothing much going on. Oh, yeah. The Lakers just fired Darvin Ham. Your thoughts, my friend, on the Lakers getting rid of Ham for good?
Yeah, thank you, Gerald. First of all, go Rebs. For anyone out there who's a UNLV fan, got to represent. This is what I got when I went out to Las Vegas. Very cool hat. Had to do it. I like my
cool.
I love my vintage stuff, so had to get it. But as far as
Next
Darvin
up,
Ham,
I gotta have lunch, man.
yes. If I'm ever out there, we do have to have lunch. I'll remember that. But Darvin Ham, yeah. So he got fired today. I had a feel, from my standpoint, I know you, Joe, and Magic Man had your thoughts on it throughout the season and even leading up to this. From what I figured, it seemed like it was inevitable based on how the season was going, even way earlier in the year, that this would happen at some point unless the Lakers were able to make some sort of playoff run past the first round, which did not happen. I don't know. It just seemed, it kind of was just spiraling out of control as far as the locker room stuff, the comments he makes to the media. And we just, I think some people thought it wouldn't happen. Some people thought he'd stick around another year, but I think for the Lakers' sake, it was good that it happened that way. I think they just were not going to do anything with him at the helm. They were just going to be stuck at this bottom play in the West. So a good decision. it's the Lakers head coaching spot. You can find anyone on planet Earth that would want to do that to do it. So they're going to find a good replacement, I feel like, and it was a good move by them to get rid of Ham. And yeah, that's really it. I mean, I just think, due to the fact that they didn't make a deep playoff run, they kind of were just at the bottom of this play-in battle for the entire length of the season. It just was about time for Ham to get on out of there.
Convenient, though, that Agent Wojnarowski, who was the first one to report this officially, although there's been speculation for days now that it would happen sometime by the end of the week. Jovan Buha from The Athletic and others reporting that. Funny how Agent Wojnarowski within the past 15 minutes has reported that the Clippers now are looking to tie up he knows the pun in there, sorry, tie up Ty Lue on a longer extension coming up here as soon as possible. So looks like they want to make sure Ty Lue is not going to become the next Los Angeles Lakers coach. Your thoughts on that? Convenient timing, isn't it?
Yeah, very convenient. And, trust me, I guess the Clippers, that's been the news source. That's been the news that we've gotten from teams looking to extend their coaches. But I bet there's others out there in the NBA. I can't name them off the top of my head. But if there's coaches out there that teams like that they want to stick with, that they want to extend, they're working on that right now, because I probably can't name another job, maybe Boston. And I know people in here won't like that, but I can't name another job in the NBA you would rather have head coaching than the Lakers. It's the premier spot for basketball on planet Earth, and these teams are going to want to lock up their coaches. And trust me, with how the Clippers have been this year, it doesn't surprise me that they're wanting to lock up Lue for, a good bit down the road.
We'll see if he does commit to it, if he does want to sign it, or if he has an opt-out for the final year or years on his contract. He can go ahead and walk if he wants to. So we'll see how that's going to work out here in the coming days. I know that we're going to be covering the playoffs, which could or will, include the finalization of the Dallas Clippers series here in a minute. But yeah, I think when it comes right down to it, like you said, not only just the way he acted on the court and the indecisions that were made, plus also the fact, just the issues regarding the way his game management, clock management, as far as his roster management, just absolutely questions abound. And I know every coach to a fan base gets that. It's like, what is this coach doing here? What is this coach doing there? But during the entire tenure, we saw early on the experience that he had, and it was showing quite clearly as far as the inexperience that he was utilizing in his everyday tactics. I real that first year, I had noted it on almost an everyday occasion until late in the year, he had like a revelation as far as to come out in the second half of a game against Minnesota of all teams late in the year that started to think maybe he's got this thing turned around. And then we saw he was able to go ahead and do just enough and do just the right amount of things to get the Lakers to that Western Conference Finals. But it looks like the Lakers, even though they won more games this time around, it seemingly looks like the Lakers, even though they, as Joe said, they shot better, they had better health, they were only marginally better as far as during the season record wise, but ultimately you didn't get it done in the playoffs, and that's what matters the most.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, especially you're not the coach of a patient team as far as, what you're doing on the court goes. You're the coach of the Lakers, and if you could go to the Western Conference Finals a year ago, they expect you to make it back there again, at the very least. And I think, for based on how this season went, the more wins is wonderful. But again, the West was a bit tougher, especially with the young upstart teams kind of shooting their way toward the top of the standings with the Nuggets, who are the defending champs. And it was a more difficult year. And I think Ham failed to adjust to that. And it hurt him down the stretch. And they were able to scrape out a play-in berth and, work their way into the playoffs and won a game against the Nuggets. But in the end, it's a first round exit. And that's very tough. And that's just something the Lakers won't put up with. I don't know if there's been any Lakers coach ever who's, stuck around after a first round exit for that long. I mean, after the fact. So they finally realized it's time to, maybe this isn't a blow up by any means, but it's time to kind of put someone else at the helm of this team and see if they can get them to go far. Because on paper, this roster, we all figured, they could still make some noise toward title contention. Yeah, and it just didn't seem that way at all this year that they were doing that. And, it was just a lack of adjustments throughout the season. And in the end, they made the right decision. And I think it will, I don't know if it'll take a long time, but the Lakers are going to find a person who, is fit well enough and fit better enough for this spot than Darvin Ham was.
So it looks like if that's the case, and they want to go ahead and make sure Ty Lue is not going anywhere, the final year of his contract currently is 2025, 26. So he has more years to go even on this current contract, but they don't even want any reference to it as far as Ty Lue is concerned. So let's just put Ty Lue out of the picture. Who in your mind might appear to you as a strong candidate? I know there's already names being bandied about. Budenholzer, you hear JJ Redick, Kenny Atkinson, you hear these names already. Any of these names appeal to you, or who, maybe somebody out of left field that we're not thinking about as of yet?
Well, I know I've said this in y'all's chat during your other shows and stuff, and I know it's, with having LeBron on your team, it'd be difficult. But the guy who I think got hosed this year, who didn't get a fair shot, was Adrian Griffin, and that's a left field answer for me. The record was, I think it was like 40-13. It was very close to that at the point he got fired from the Bucks.
It was 30-13.
30-13. Okay. And they were second in the East behind the Celtics, who, looked like the best team in basketball, still look like the best team in basketball, arguably this year. And he just I think he got bounced just because there was locker room stuff and the players didn't like him. And, my mind's telling me that comes from Giannis Antetokounmpo being like, I don't like this guy. Let's get him out and throw someone else in there. But I mean, if I understand locker room issues, but if you got a coach who comes in there with a roster that's meant to compete for a title, like the Bucks' roster is, he could do the same for the Lakers, in my opinion. He could definitely do the same with them. I understand, you would have to, if it's, putting too much on the line as far as locker room relations goes. I get it. That's a huge part of it. That's how it was with the Bucks. The Bucks just shot themselves in the foot with who they picked up afterward to coach them, and they kind of blew it there. But with the Lakers, I think if they take a look at him and if they talk to their players and they're like, well, look, this guy got a roster who, was meant to compete and got them to compete. He could do the same for us. That's a guy who I'd really look and consider. I don't think it's the most likely option to happen just because, again, of the locker room stuff that came on the side with Milwaukee. But I do like the idea of Adrian Griffin getting a head coaching job somewhere in the NBA this next season, and the Lakers could be a spot.
Not too bad a suggestion because of what you saw, 30-13. Again, you talked about what happened behind the scenes. Obviously, the Terry Stotts deal, him leaving over those circumstances kind of makes you maybe take a step back and say, oh, we got to go ahead and investigate this further before you look into Adrian Griffin more seriously. But JJ Redick's name, I know ESPN because he's an ESPN commentator. I know that ESPN is heavily pushing him already. I've seen two videos already on ESPN in regards to JJ Redick. I don't know how realistically you think that should be because, again, he has zero coaching experience in the NBA, same as me. We've already gone through that with once as far as from a Lakers fan's perspective with Darvin Ham, and you saw how that worked out. Your thoughts on JJ Redick? I understand he has a good relationship with LeBron. They do the show and the podcast together. That's great and all, but really when it comes down to it, is he a guy that you should seriously, consider for that position?
Yeah, I would toe that line very carefully. And by very carefully, I mean I would definitely make phone calls to a few other people before I do JJ Redick. I like the idea of Griffin, like I said. Budenholzer, I know people have their mixed feelings about him, but I do like the idea of him.
Is it more of the same?
Right.
Because Ham, Ham is from the Budenholzer tree. And
right.
So the 5 outs, the drop coverage,
Mm-hmm.
just having AD shoot more threes when he's not, just the things you saw, the allowing or really, I guess, it's cornering your defense, allowing a lot of 3-point shots. That's something that's designed by Budenholzer,
Yeah,
and that's you saw Ham emulate quite a bit of that as well.
that is true. And, I think you have to be cautious of that as well. But my biggest thing with Redick is I get the LeBron relationship, but if you're a Lakers fan and you're sitting there going, Darvin Ham just was not the answer. He had no experience, blah, 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 blah. It's good that we got him out. Let's go get JJ Redick. I don't see your logic, in that. Does that make sense? I
No,
just
I
don't see
like
how
the way
that.
he's, but I just no, 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 just go get JJ Redick. It's like,
Right,
yeah,
right.
I can understand the way when you phrase it like that. I don't know if anybody could be on board when you say it like
Yeah,
that.
because for me, it's like, if you're gonna want to improve and whatnot, you're gonna want a guy that's been proven to do that, and that's why, I would put JJ Redick very low on the totem pole of what you want. And I love JJ Redick to death. Love him as an analyst. Love him as a guy. Obviously, like you've said with that LeBron relationship, that's huge. But in all honesty, I just don't think he should start out, in a head coaching position. He could be some sort of developmental assistant, an assistant coach of some kind if he wanted to. That would be okay because that's a good
Or
start
give
with
him
it.
the job in Charlotte, where there
There,
is no expectations.
yeah, give him the job somewhere where it's the building's on fire, needs to put it out with water the best he can, and that would be a
Yeah,
great start.
yeah.
I think doing it with the Lakers is just not the move for it. Um, there's plenty of other options if you're the Lakers who you could go out and get that have coaching experience that you'd rather do ahead of him. Again, the ones I'm seeing online, I don't know if they're necessarily good. Like you mentioned, Budenholzer, it's kind of the same concepts as what Ham was providing. I've seen Frank Vogel thrown out there. I would not do that, not after this season. And I don't know. I just think it's just not the right move to do
That would be
another
so
guy.
funny if Frank Vogel comes.
I I don't know. The other one too I saw, I don't know if someone on here said it. It was if the Mavericks lose this series, Jason Kidd would end up going there, and people were, hands on head, like not feeling that either. So obviously there's better coaching options you could look at, but I would completely stay away and refrain from someone with zero coaching experience like what the Lakers just had.
Yeah. Hernan says everyone keeps saying no, no, no to young coaches, but who else is there, Alfred? But remember, there's still more teams that can be eliminated, maybe more
Mm.
coaches that may want to part ways. So we will see. But yeah, JJ Redick on your first time, Hernan, I think that's a recipe for disaster. Rondo, I know he has been talked about. In fact, I have said that Rajon Rondo would be or will make at some point in time a good head coach. But the problem is he keeps getting himself into trouble legal wise. So I don't know if any team will actually bring him on as a head coach. I would see him as an assistant coach first. It just because I think he would have been an individual that if he'd stayed out of the the police blotter, for lack of a better term, he would have actually gotten that head coaching opportunity already. But unfortunately, like I said, I think the fact that he has done that, I think the best he can choose for right now is an assistant to try to rebuild his reputation.
I agree. And it's the same sort of thing. I just think, in the end, Lakers fans, I think, are just going to want to rather have a guy with experience and a guy who, who's been proven to win with a roster that's able to compete. And that's why I keep, circling back to Adrian Griffin like beating a dead horse at this point. It's just because he's been proven to win with a roster that's meant to compete for a title, 30-13, second seed in the East. They were sitting pretty. And then, of course, the locker room stuff popped out. And I would look into that. But that's an option I'd rather have over guys like Rondo and Redick who don't have any coaching experience and need to, sort of build their way into the coaching circle of the NBA.
Again, I don't think they will do it just for PR reasons. Everyone just
Mm.
stay calm down on the Rondo talk. As an assistant coach, I could see that happening, but I don't think they would do it as a head coach unless LeBron put that as a demand on his side. And I don't know if they've coached together on what is the Peachtree games with the AAU kids and whatnot. I think him and LeBron have worked together on a coaching staff for that. I'm going to say again, unless LeBron demands it as part of an extension, I would say slow down on that. But Daniel, thank you for the super chat. Rondo, I would like and need Brunson type play. Yeah, wouldn't everybody need a Brunson type player right now? I would love to have a Brunson type player on the Lakers. Absolutely. Hernan says, who was a better player, Darvin Ham or Rondo? That doesn't equate. Being a good player doesn't always equate to Magic Johnson as coach. Need I say more?
Wayne Gretzky as coach in hockey. Need I say more? Steve
Nash.
Oh, yeah. That's a really good one, actually.
Yeah.
That's probably the best one to use. Yeah, it has nothing to do with
Patrick
coaching
Ewing.
whatsoever.
How'd that work out for him? Yeah. He was better as an assistant. When he finally got the head coaching gig at the alma mater Georgetown, that went south real quick. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
I do like the idea, candidate wise. I saw Kurt said something. I do like Adelman a lot. I've been reading a lot into him. I think that's I think there's a lot
younger Adelman, right?
Yes, David. He I think he's having an interview with Charlotte, speaking of which, for their head coaching spot. That would be good for Charlotte. But even if Charlotte drops the ball on that, I think the Lakers could swoop in if they wanted to. Championship culture guy with the Nuggets. Obviously, at some point, those guys are going to want to spread out and try their luck at head coaching. And I think that's not a bad idea. I'd rather do that over any former player who has no coaching experience.
Well, like was said in chat, I mean, Charlotte, you can experiment. You're a team with zero expectations. When you're a team like the Lakers and you want to go ahead and make a change to better your team now from a 47-win team, and you have obviously designs on doing something even better, you cannot take the time to experiment, especially when you've got a guy that's your 1 or 1A, however you want to slice it, that's going to be hitting 40 years old by the end of this year.
Yeah, I think so too. And, it would be a good fit for Charlotte. I think if they were able to get him, just a little off topic from the Lakers talk real quick, I think, that would be their best option at any coach they could find. But again, I just think having that, and obviously he's a younger guy too. I think I saw some people in the chat saying, oh, what about young? And I think he would be a good option if you want a young guy who has that sort of coaching experience. And I don't know, that would be another option I'd look at ahead of guys like Vogel and Kidd if you were to get bounced from the Mavericks. And Mike Budenholzer as well. I'd look at him ahead of that. So I don't know. It's another good option for the Lakers to look at.
Hernan's asking you why you would oppose the return of Vogel. I just think it would be funny. I just think that is just a bad situation, Hernan. I mean, the team got rid of you, and now suddenly 2 years later, they want you back. Forget the awkwardness of it all, Hernan. You're just talking about something that's just not going to work. I mean, he got a raw deal the first time around. Do you think he wants to go back to where the team that gave him a raw deal the first time around is? I understand it's a job, but if he gets fired tomorrow from Phoenix, he's got 2-3 years left on his contract that he can go ahead and play golf. I don't think he would want to go and step back into or somewhere to a team that really gave him a raw end of the bargain, Alfred.
Yeah, I agree with that. And on top of that,
Hernan said, I think not with Jeannie and Rob, Hernan, not with Jeannie and Rob. Jeannie and Rob are not smooth enough for that. Give me a break.
Yeah, I think, with Vogel, the biggest thing right now, I mean, the talk of the NBA this first round before we get into playoff talk has been that blow up that, that Phoenix team just had. And I'm going to go back. I'm going to toot my own horn with my formula I used for Adrian Griffin. Griffin was a guy, championship roster. He won games with it, with the team that was meant to compete for a title. This Phoenix team, I think it's pretty obvious heading into this year, was meant to compete for a championship with the scores they had around that roster. And Beal, Booker, Durant, I don't know why I couldn't think of his name, Durant as well. That was a team that was meant to, if anything, be at the top of the West and go far in the Western Conference playoffs. They need to win a title because their situation, after this year or so is really not pretty. I think it was one draft pick until 2031. They're in deep water that they really need to tread hard in. And with Vogel, he just did not help them tread. It was sinking it. And I know it's not all on him. I know some of these players like Bradley Beal did not have a good playoff run at all. I get it, but I think in the end it's going to all fall on the coach. And if you have that kind of roster and you get swept in the first round, I don't know how you look at him and you put him in the Lakers situation and you see much of anything different from Ham. Maybe you see a little. Maybe it's not the same. Maybe they go a little bit further. I just don't really think it's, the best idea, to go from Ham to a guy who gave you pretty much the same exact playoff results, as your former coach did. It's just not smart, especially when both rosters, when you compare the two with the Lakers and the Suns, are both meant to compete for titles. And it's just not, it just would not, I just don't think it would work out. And then obviously, Gerald, with what you said with the relationship and how, that all ended between the two parties, it wouldn't be a good formula. You want to talk about locker room problems, like with what Griffin had, there would be internal problems with Vogel if he were to make a return at all.
I'll put it to you like this. I remember I was part of a management staff with Hertz Rent-A-Car. I was running the whole customer service for their Las Vegas area. And they laid 26, I think it was 26 managers at the same time, including myself. And I know that while I went on, managed other things, and they got some feelers that they wanted me to come back. And I'm like, hell no. Hell no.
Yeah, right.
I'm making more money now. I got a better schedule, and I don't have to deal with the dirt, the crap that you gave me. You think I want to go back?
No. Yeah, I agree with that. No, I wouldn't want to go back. Exactly. And I saw what Kurt said. Vogel won the championship, and that's obvious. And so Vogel expects, hey, well, why don't you not treat me like the way you treated me in the first place? Yeah. And I just don't see any reason why he'd even want to come back. And even if he did, I just don't think from a basketball standpoint it would work out either. As much as, I don't think it'd be that much better than Ham.
He has to get fired first from Phoenix. And again, and he's got he would still have 2-3 years left on his contract,
Right.
And this Phoenix also Phoenix has to eat the largest salaries that are out there. One of the largest salary, that they have, and all the taxes. And you're asking him to eat an additional coach's contract too. Now, I understand he did not get the blessing upon the exit interview from Matt Ishbia, the owner of the Suns, but I don't know. That's
no, and Ishbia was this is obviously a PR cover up, maybe, but if you saw his interview, he was adamant. He was like, "We're not gonna."
The only thing he didn't talk about was the status of Frank Vogel. So I know that left everybody to be unquestioned. So,
and he is adamant about not blowing it up. We're going to try and make this work. And I think the first step to that is don't fire the coach you have. And so that's a good point. We have to wait and see if he even gets fired first. And there's a chance that might not even happen.
I think everybody is going to be asking for the Monty Williams deal. That's what I think. 10 years? He's the highest. He's now the second highest paid, I think, or second or third highest paid. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You remember they got rid of the GM recently, but they can't get rid of the coach because his amount of years, because I think it's 10 years, if I'm not mistaken. It's a long contract at a really high dollar amount. So I don't think no matter how bad he does in Detroit, he ain't going anywhere anytime soon. So
no, they're going to want to pay that off at least a little bit. And they don't really have any reason to, get rid of him and throw someone else new into the mix when they need to build chemistry as a team and as a culture and as a program.
Hernan, I just mentioned that earlier about Adrian Wojnarowski conveniently and timely reporting about half an hour ago that the Clippers are in serious discussions to try and extend Ty Lue. I don't know how that's working because obviously he has to prepare for a game, but obviously he's probably dealing with his agent and whatnot. So I know he makes about $7 million a year on his contract. So I think the numbers have just gone up for him. Thank you, Lakers. There you go. Gets himself a raise on top of it. But once again, it is Alfred Ezman. Please go ahead and support him today at OrlandoMagicDaily.com. And we will take questions about Darvin Ham and the firing and a new coach and all that, as we still continue to talk about the NBA playoffs. tonight, and actually just about an hour and a half from now, your eyes will be in tune
Oh,
to Orlando. Biggest game that they've had there in quite some time. Cleveland, Orlando, game 6. Orlando's down 2-3. They have proven themselves to be very formidable. They did not roll over and die when the opportunity arose. They have played excellent defense at times. I know offense has been the issue and will continue to be the issue for Orlando. They had that one batch in the second half where they exploded for 60 plus points. Outside of that, it has been a struggle for them. But again, nobody plays, or very few teams play as good a defense as Orlando. I noticed that I've been hearing on the radio and a lot of stuff about how Boston would rather play Cleveland than Orlando. I think that comes with good reason. But your thoughts going into game 6 tonight with Cleveland and Orlando?
well, I'll say this: that Orlando has the advantage. I think this series has been Game 5 is a little different. And I'll get to that in a sec. But games 1 through 4 of this series has been a tale of whoever's at home sort of just controls the pace and the tempo of the game and gets the win. And that was apparent for Orlando in games 3 and 4 when they were at home in the Kia Center. They were able to really shut down Donovan Mitchell all game. I have an article up on Orlando Magic Daily about that. Or Mitchell, he got a fair amount of points, but did not shoot that efficiently at all while he was in Orlando. That will be key tonight because he is the man. I think it's obvious at this point he is the man for Cleveland, the guy who will, if Cleveland's going to get it done, he's going to be the one to do it. And I think we're going to expect a huge Paulo Banchero game again. I don't know if anyone out there watched Game 5, but welcome to the show and welcome to superstardom, young man. He had 39 points. There was a stretch. I think it was like from 6 minutes to go in the game until the very end, right around a minute 30 left. He hit a shot on every possession, and he by himself was keeping up with that Cleveland team on the road. And he was able just to control the game. It wasn't even him getting to the rim using his size. It was him moving laterally with crossovers and getting jumpers over the top of guys, tall defenders like Max Strus and even Mobley a few times. And that was huge for the Magic. That game came down to a good Evan Mobley block at the end to kind of seal the deal. Franz Wagner had to lay up to tie it, and it just got rejected. But Orlando, this is a young team who said they're not ready to go home yet. They have their back against the wall, but they're in their own building. And, if I had to guess, it's going to be pretty dang loud in there tonight. So Orlando has that advantage for them going forward. That being said, I think this is obviously a little biased, but I do think if you're smart about it, the Magic will tie the series and it will go to 7. And at some point they're going to have to get a win in Cleveland, obviously to win the series. I think that could come game 7. I don't think they're ready to go yet. I think Cleveland's offense has had troubles in Orlando. It's been big, but this will be a huge game tonight for the Magic, kind of to see if, they really want to kind of fight and, have a shot at Boston. And I do think, going back to what you said about Boston rather playing Cleveland, I think the Magic, if you've watched, I went to the game back in November, the in-season tournament game, and they beat Boston by 17 points. And that was a healthy Boston team. I think they had one player out who was a bench player, and that's really it. So Orlando has played Boston well, and I think Boston knows that. So they're going to want to play this Cleveland team who has similar problems, if any, to the Magic. And I don't know. It's interesting. This has been a good series. I understand it, from a visual perspective. It hasn't been anything spectacular, nothing highlight reel worthy, maybe. Not much has been highlight reel worthy. But it's been a good competitive series, physical series like I thought it would be, and it's all coming to a head tonight.
Absolutely. Although Orlando is probably still kicking themselves how they had that win the other day right there on the road, and just like the Lakers, you got to close it out. You got to take the steps. You got to do those things necessary to get it done. And if you don't get it done, it really comes back to haunt you. So we'll see what happens with Orlando. You and I talked about before, we were not sure if Banchero is going to take that next step, or Franz Wagner is going to take that next step to be a legit number 1 in the league. And you are seeing that transformation now from Banchero, and Wagner has been doing very well as a 1A right now. So yeah, definitely looks good for them. Although you can see what they need and
Yeah.
what they think they might get. I know D'Angelo Russell might use Orlando's need for a good shooting point guard or good shooting guard as maybe whether he goes there or just as more means for bouncing back more money. I know that was one of the places we speculated that he might go in case he doesn't go to the Lakers. So yeah, definitely looking forward to seeing what Orlando does. Again, they've got to be able to score, and that's been their
Yeah.
thing. Nobody questions their defense. They only question what's going on the offensive side.
Yeah, certainly. And it's been interesting. That's the stuff I'm going to do next for Orlando Magic Daily is off-season stuff. And that's just because I think this creates what this playoff run for Orlando has created is we can't sit we can't sit on our hands this offseason anymore. Like usually that's been a joke with Orlando for a long time. The only moves they'd make would be like I remember 2 years ago it was Robin Lopez on a 1-year deal for 5-ish million, something like that. And that was the only move they made. And everyone's like, there goes Orlando once again, just kind of sitting in the corner doing nothing. And that's not the case this time around. I think they know like, hey, I don't know if we can win a title yet, but we can certainly compete for the Eastern Conference at this point if we're able to make the right moves. That could be a guy like Russell. I think it's the point guard is the biggest thing.
You're gonna see every high scoring guard from Levine
Mm-hmm.
to Trey Young, DeJounte Murray. You're gonna hear every high scoring 20 plus point a game guard mentioned for Orlando Magic that would be
Certainly.
available. Yeah.
Certainly. Yeah. I mean, that's the big thing because a lot of times what it's been has been Jalen Suggs running the point, and that's been fine. And it's gotten us this far and it's gotten us this good.
Yeah, but Jalen's,
But
as much as I love him as a leader, you do need someone that can score right
correct.
alongside him.
Because the other guard we're putting on the side has either been guys like Gary Harris, who's good for what he is, has not been good this series at all. I will get into that. But it's not gonna carry you going forward. And I think they know that at this point. So that's going to be the biggest thing what you're looking for and stuff like that, and especially with Gary not having a good series, it's like he might be on the list of guys who are on their way out of Orlando to clear up some money space that they could spend.
But you're right, my friend. If they win tonight, they have to prove that they can win in a road, and that would be a big growing achievement for them as a young growing team if they could go ahead and win on the road come Sunday. I'm assuming that's the game 7 if that would be the case. So here's rooting for your team, Orlando. I like I said, no issue against Cleveland, but yeah, Orlando, obviously because of your affiliation, we want to make sure that we give them the support like you've given our Lakers support here as well. So truly appreciate it. Plus, if it gets, Jared Allen out the door in Cleveland and it's a possibility for the Lakers, I think Joe likes that option as well. I threw it in his head yesterday and he's like, oh, it had a spasm. So, yeah, I think he liked that option as well. But also out there tonight, the Clippers and the Dallas Mavericks. Speaking of Ty Lue, not like he has anything going on right now. Yeah, just got a game 6 to look forward to. Yes. Dallas now has all the momentum after winning on the road in the crypt. And so your thoughts on this one, my friend? I think Dallas does not let this get away from them. I think they move on to the second round tonight.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm on that train as well. Dallas is at home tonight, which is huge. I was very high on this Clippers team, and they kind of faltered a little bit and let Dallas just kind of stick with them in this series. And I really do think with Dallas at home, that crowd will be loud. I think Luka's going to feed off that. He's been just unbelievable this postseason, what he's been able to do. And I've loved watching him play. And I think they want a shot moving forward I think they play Oklahoma City is who they play. So I think I have them moving on as well. I haven't looked into it as much just because, you know me, I'm magic in my brain all the time. But I do think if I had a choice, I'm going to go with Dallas here. And it's big because I think this is big for head coaching talk. I mean, we threw those two names around in the hat for the Lakers just, either as a joke or we're serious. But a lot's riding on tonight. I don't know what the Mavericks would do. Let's say if the Clippers were able to somehow make this 3-2 comeback and win the series. I don't know what the Mavericks would do about Jason Kidd, because I know there's a lot of speculation about him. But if the Mavericks are able to work this thing out like I see them doing tonight, I think Kidd does keep his job, and it's important. It kind of creates some watching candy for Lakers fans to eat while it's going on with the two head coaches.
I wish Frank was here, or as Joe would say, Frank, because I could ask him as a resident Dallas fan just how tenuous is Kidd's position. But you're right. If Kidd blows it in the series and he loses the last two, I think he's gone.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think so.
Which wouldn't be great for the Lakers, because he would immediately jump into the head of the line for the Lakers position. And I don't think that's good for the Lakers. So
no,
but that's just, just something I thought there. But again, that is, of course, Dallas if they don't win tonight. But I think they would do. I think they have this, as long as you get a decent game from Doncic and Kyrie Irving, I think you're all good on that. But also coming up then is the other playoff series that are coming up here. Looking forward to it, my friend. We'll start off with the New York blankety blank Knicks. My gosh. They had a slugfest in every way, shape, or form against the Philadelphia 76ers. They did everything that they needed to do. I love the stat. We talk about the Lakers, 70% of the lead for the series against the Nuggets. The difference between the Sixers and the Knicks, Alfred, was 1 point the entire series. All the scores combined.
Unreal.
Yeah, exactly.
Unreal.
And the Knicks got out of it, my friend. They move on to the Pacers. Pacers dispatched of the Bucks. Your thoughts on this, my friend? It's going to be interesting to see if the Pacers can keep their high pace, because if they can't, they're going to be dead in the water, literally, by the Knicks.
Yeah, and a priority number one, if you're the Indiana Pacers, guard Jalen Brunson. These are his playoff stats, Gerald. I don't know. Have you looked at these? I just looked right now. 35 and a half a game. He's taking almost 30 shots. He's shooting. I mean, his shooting isn't like over the moon percentage wise, but it's getting it done. Taking 7 3-pointers a game. He's getting to the line at least 5 times a game. It looks like. Obviously that might switch with and ones and whatnot, but 10 free throw attempts a game, 9 assists, almost 5 rebounds. He is playing unbelievable basketball, and he is, putting a spark into a team that if they're good, the NBA is better, in my opinion.
And somehow he's not on the Olympic team.
Yeah, I know. It's unbelievable and crazy, but regardless, that is the Pacers. They've had questionable defense all year. That is your first priority. You have got to find a way to stop that guy, or you're losing this series, no matter how much you score. If you could score 150 every game if you want. If you do not stop Jalen Brunson, you're somehow going to lose this series. Yep. That's just the bottom line. But for Indiana, I think they did what they needed to do. I didn't expect them to. I think it was reasonable to expect them to beat the Bucks. I didn't think they'd do it like how they did in 5 games. Like, that was pretty quick and pretty painless. Shout out Milwaukee again for firing your coach while you were 30-13 and getting a new one that just didn't work. So good job there with that. I hated it when that happened, Gerald. I'm sorry. It's just that was.
I thought it was mentioned the David Blatt one. I thought that was the most egregious one, because LeBron didn't like David Blatt. I think they would won 50 games. I think something like that. Or no,
yeah,
they were ahead, had won 10 games in a row, and they were number 1 in the Eastern Conference, I believe, at the time of his firing, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong on that, but yeah. That was the one that made me scratch my head the most.
Yeah. And it all came to a head. And I think, for people that knew the history of Doc, we figured this was going to happen. It's like no secret at this point. If you have the Celtics teams you had for however long, and you get 1 championship out of it, there is an issue. And, it came to a head now, and we saw what happened. But shout out Indiana. Miles Turner's played very well. I know we talk about Halliburton a lot with him, but Miles Turner's like 19
caught the eye of Laker Tom again for past 2 years. He's caught Yeah. Oh, he's doing so well. Pacers, you know what? We can do 2 trade swaps and 2 firsts for him.
I mean, he's like he's the man in that front court. I guess they do have Siakam now, so it's a little different. But he
He's
was
just
the
got to play.
man.
He's got to play consistently with Miles Turner.
Yes.
Does that's the thing because he'll score 30 for you one day and 7 the next. So to me, it's I think there's untapped potential there even at his age. I think he's still got more that he can do. So we'll see if that's the case, and he can continue to be consistent. Because if he's not consistent in this upcoming series, they don't have a chance. Halliburton will not play to the level of Brunson. I think that's asking
Yeah.
Halliburton way too much, especially coming back from that hamstring injury where he's not been quite the same. I think you're asking yourself way too much to put Halliburton at the level right now that you need him to be matching up against Brunson. So you need an advantage somewhere, and Turner has to be it.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think Turner's going to have his hands full as well. I think we saw I know Joel Embiid had an insane playoffs as well. He's actually right behind Brunson in points with 33 a game. But, he's going to run into some big guys down low with Hartenstein. And then I think, I don't know for sure how, because I don't watch him as much as I do Orlando, but I would figure at some point in the series, Turner's going to see OG, on the defense when he's on offense guarding him. And that's going to be an issue as well. You're going to have to, if you're Indiana, you're going to have all your guys firing. And those are guys that, haven't always been consistent, like Siakam, and all this stuff. It can't just be Turner. It can't just be Hallie. It can't just be Pascal if it's just him. It has to be the three of them clicking on all cylinders. Because again, if they're not doing that, you're going to get Jalen Brunson scoring 30, 40-point games this series. He's inevitably going to have some. And then it's going to be lights that turn out the lights, parties over, all that stuff. And New York is going to be dancing into the Eastern Conference Finals. I hate to say it. I don't really, if I had to give my prediction right now, I think Indiana takes a game in Indiana, a close one. But besides that, I think New York runs the table. And I'm going to say Knicks in 5. I just think New York at this point in time, they have a lot of energy from knocking out Embiid and the Sixers team that me and you both thought were threats sitting in the play-in with the matchups they would have. And I thought they had a good shot in this New York series. And they made it, to be fair, they made it worth their while with that point margin. But I think with New York getting by and having a favorable matchup that's not named Milwaukee, they're sitting pretty right now. And I think they smell blood in the water, if you will.
Once again, it's Alfred Ezman. Please go ahead and check out the great work that he's doing today at OrlandoMagicDaily.com. But before we leave, since we really can't evaluate, Boston, again, we talked about it. I think they would probably rather see Cleveland than Orlando, but I think that Boston, even without Porzingis, when you win 60 games, you should win that series against either opponent. I think that's pretty much safe to say. But the last series I want to cover is a very interesting one. And I've already shared my thoughts on the Darvin Ham firing episode, what I think of Minnesota and Minnesota and Denver. Minnesota really did the number on Phoenix. I'm just going to say this, Alfred. What do I think will win after what I saw with the Lakers and what I saw with Minnesota and Phoenix? If Minnesota plays the way they did against Phoenix, like they did on Phoenix's home floor in game 3 and game 4, they took away the three-pointer, especially in game 3. If you watched carefully, they made a special concerted effort to really shut down good looks at the 3. It was probably one of the best perimeter defensive performances I had seen in time. I said on the show that I would love the Lakers at Darvin Ham to emulate something like that. And then they moved on offense. Ball and man movement on offense continuously. ISOs were kept to a minimum. It was really good to watch. I'm going to say this. If Minnesota plays like that, they can go all the way to the championship. I know that's a reach and that's out there. It's a bold take, but they have to play like that. And if they can, and if Edwards plays like the monster he's been playing like with another 40-point game here and there, yeah, anything's possible.
Yeah, and I looked at, the starting lineups for Denver and Minnesota comparatively. They match up. Minnesota matches up pretty dang well with Denver. in my opinion. I mean, you're going to have obviously the best 1-2 punch in the league still to this day is Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic. That's just the best 1-2 punch in the league, in my opinion. And they're going to have their hands full with who's guarding them. I mean, Jamal Murray is going to be guarded by Anthony Edwards. And, you got Jokic guarded by guess who? Defensive Player of the Year, Rudy Gobert. It's not going to be easy for those two. And I know it's Nikola Jokic, and I know Nikola Jokic is going to have himself a series. Everyone knows that. But he's going to be challenged by Gobert down there. And I'm trying to think. I guess, a big key to this series, if he can shoot like he can usually, I think Cat's a huge kind of tipping point in this series. His ability to shoot, and I think if he can create a mismatch problem with Denver, and Malone might not know, what to do with him, and I think that might be a problem. The big thing I think the Timberwolves need to remember: get your wins at home. Get your wins at home. Do not let Denver take any at home, because if they do, that's when they have the advantage. Winning at Denver's hard. Altitude, that city's into basketball now, obviously, because they're the defending champs. It's going to be hard to win there.
Murray is going to be great.
Yes.
MPJ, if you want McDaniels, if you want to save McDaniels on Murray, put McDaniels on MPJ and blanket him.
Yeah.
The thing is, can they exploit Conley on the defensive end? If they cannot exploit Conley, or do the old what would Gobert? We talked about Gobert on Utah. They always played him off the court. If they can't play Gobert off the court and they can't take advantage of mismatches on Conley, Minnesota, I think, can win the series. I really think they can.
Yeah, and if Gobert's got his head on straight and he's ready to go, and if he stops Jokic efficiency wise, Minnesota does have a chance. I think that's the other big thing. I think I'm more worried about Gobert guarding Jokic, but Gobert, obviously he's a defensive player of the year candidate, and you can't ask for many better centers guarding Jokic than that. Maybe like Embiid, he always, ducked him whenever those two teams play, but you can't really ask for any better center in the West that I'm thinking of to match up with him, just from a pure defensive standpoint. I think it's an exciting series. I think it's the best we're going to get in the playoffs, unless we get a crazy finals matchup, but this is ready. And I think a lot of people have said, and I think it's true, Gerald, whoever wins this comes out of the West. I think this is it right here. I really do think so. I don't know if these teams match up with Denver. I don't know if the other two, the Thunder and the Mavericks, let's say if they win like we're thinking, match up as well with Denver as Minnesota does. I do think this is the Western Conference Finals in quotes before we get to it. You never know, but this is shaping up to be, a very formidable battle of two Titans.
Just want to mention before we go that the Lakers have let go of the entire staff of the coaching staff. I know that we talked about Phil Handy, who a lot of people were in love with as far as him as a development individual. He was let go. Jordan Ott, who actually had ironically interviewed for the Charlotte job, he was also let go. So the entire coaching staff, Damari Carroll, the whole entire coaching staff beyond Darvin Ham, has parted ways, according to Adrian Wojnarowski. So they are looking for a clean slate. Again, to me, I think that the slate needs to be cleaner than that. I think, obviously I would like Jeannie to sell the team on a personal note, because, she's had way more non-playoff or successful seasons than successful ones. But I think if that can't be done because the asking price is too big, you got to go ahead and reevaluate your thoughts on GM/president Rob Pelinka. Your thoughts on Rob Pelinka. One thing, we're not sure on a candidate for a coach, but there are some interesting general manager candidates that could easily outdo what we're seeing now with Rob Pelinka.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think that's another big thing too. I think it's a lot to ask an owner to sell the team. I think that is definitely a personal decision for those people, as opposed to what the team is doing a lot of the time, just because, it's your investment. If you feel you're not getting your money's worth out of it, you take it out, not as much so your team's performance out of it. But beyond that, going back to Pelinka, I think that's a big thing. And I think you need to really take a look in the mirror at it with this coaching hire. That might correlate between what you do with it. And I think, Pelinka's decision on this coach really is going to determine his future with this franchise. And I think, with that on the line, there's definitely GMs out there who are on teams that don't necessarily have the resources the Lakers do that have done very well. Personal example, just because I cover the team, Jeff Weltman with the Orlando Magic was working with the Bucks back in 2021 when they won the championship. Comes to Orlando and he built it brick by brick. By obviously Orlando got that number 1 pick in 2022, got Paolo Banchero, and he's just building and building and building, and he tore down the team, the old Steve Clifford team that was the 7 and 8 seed every year. Got trades out of it with the Bulls. That was that Franz Wagner pick. Picked up your guard and Jalen Suggs. Got your other wing player. He got the playmakers, and now all of a sudden, look at where Orlando's at with that. And that included a good coaching hire that took a lot of time and research. I didn't know who Jamal Mosley was when he got hired. I was like, who is this? I don't know who this is. Looked into it, developmental guy with the Mavericks. I was like, okay, that makes sense because the Magic had notoriously been a bad developing team. And that's why they were getting nowhere for the longest time after Dwight Howard. And they got a coach who didn't have the X's and O's experience, but he had the development experience with players like Luka Doncic, who, by the way, is doing very good. And all these other guys in the Mavericks, relatively, right, Gerald?
Relatively.
Relatively, yeah.
He'll stay in the league a couple years.
Right, exactly. But, yeah, I mean, when you got a guy who can develop like that, he can learn to do the X's and O's. And that's what he's starting to do, and that's why the Magic are in the playoffs right now. So that's the biggest thing. You have GMs like that who don't have the resources and don't have the brand like the Lakers, who are doing good enough to get these teams into the playoffs. The Orlando Magic brand is not the Lakers brand. It's polar ends of the spectrum. You can get this. That's why this coaching hire is big, because I think if Pelinka lands with it, it helps his case a lot. But I do think it's hard if you're Genie, just with the relationship stuff. And, I think you guys talk about this a lot with when the Lakers do something, it's plastered all over ESPN, left and right. So, and I think Genie's cautious of that. That's why the Pelinka thing would be huge. But if my whole opinion on it, I think this coaching hire, what he does with it is his make or break with the Los Angeles Lakers.
Once again, it is Alfred Ezman. It is, of course, the guy behind many of the great stories at Orlando Magic Daily, plus so many other places out there. But OrlandoMagicDaily.com is your first stop for all things Orlando Magic. Before we head on out, my friend, it is time for the cheap plug that I love our guests to do. As always, my friend Alfred, give everyone an update of what you're doing at OrlandoMagicDaily.com and everything else that you want to go ahead and give a cheap plug to.
Yeah, so OrlandoMagicDaily.com. I'm going to stay quiet until after this playoff series just to see, what happens with it, whether it be an exit and we're into the offseason or moving on. If we move on, I'll obviously look into a Celtics preview, that sort of thing, how they match up, blah, blah, blah. My most recent thing I've done with them was the 2 home wins the Magic have this series and how shutting down Donovan Mitchell with their defense that has been so good all year was the hugest part, arguably, in that. If the Magic do get knocked out, we'll be doing some offseason stuff, some free agency pickups they can make. We've seen Paul George circulating on Twitter. Don't think that'll happen. That's a very long shot, but it's out there, and we always try to, clickbait, if you will, a little bit and get people to read it just to see what it's about. But I'll be doing free agency looks at that, draft stuff as well. The Magic, I know, won't be a lottery team this time around, which is shocking, but they won't be a lottery team this time around. So we'll see what they do with that later round pick. Buffalo Bills doing some draft stuff. I talked a lot about Ray Davis, the running back from Kentucky. He was a huge, in my opinion, a steal in the 4th round they got. He's a huge weapon who they could play behind Cook. Keep an eye out for that. Give that a read. Hardwood Heroics doing some college basketball stuff. Nothing running Rebs, although maybe I should after getting some love for this hat. But I did some stuff on Jameer Watkins, an underrated college player. I've done some stuff on transfer portal things like Omar Balu down in Arizona. If there's any fans out there who like the Wildcats, he's now in Indiana, obviously. I might do something on how that's going to affect them. And then looking elsewhere, really just with Rays baseball continuing the season, they made some moves today to their roster to try to improve because the Rays are sitting now at 14 and 18. Not really where you expected them to be at this point in the season. It's early, but some changes will be needed. So I'll have some stuff about that. So just baseball season, basketball off season / playoffs, depending on what collegiate or professional you're talking about, and of course, NFL draft. Talking some draft stuff with the Bills.
There you go. So please check out all the great things that he's doing today, Alfred Ezman, starting with, of course, OrlandoMagicDaily.com. Alfred, always great to have you here. Looking forward to our continued talks on the NBA playoffs. But any last thoughts, my friend, before we head on out? I don't know if we're going to fire any head coaches, again in the near future, but
right. No, just final thoughts. Big games tonight for the Magic and Cavs and Clippers and Mavericks. 4-5 playoff matchups. So, they're going to be good. They've been good all series long, and they'll continue to be tonight. Exciting basketball to watch. Lakers fans, remember, if you want some coaching drama for you guys, the Mavericks Clippers series has undertones of that. So remember that as you're watching to keep you on the edge of your seat. Other than that, just looking forward to, even the next round of the playoffs. We've already got, the matchup of Giants with the T-Wolves and Nuggets. And then obviously the Knicks, who have just been killing it with Brunson this playoff season going forward. They look to make a deep run as well. Exciting stuff. Continuing to be excited about the playoffs. I know the Lakers are out of it, but we're going to get some good basketball down the stretch here, most certainly.
That we are, my friend. That we are. But once again, it is Alfred Ezman. Please go ahead and check out what he's doing today at OrlandoMagicDaily.com. Appreciate everyone in the chat. What a great chat today for both the Darvin Ham episode and this episode. You guys are always killing it at the best Lakers chat room that's out there, the Lakers Fast Break. Tonight, Joe has inimitably, as always, said, let me see what I can do on time. So that's exactly what the time I have for Joe is. He's hoping, and he hates when I say that he can do a nightcap. Henry Hill said he'll stop by. Sean, they'll all have a toast to Darvin Ham leaving as the coach of the Los Angeles Lakers tonight on the nightcap. Don't know when it is yet, but when he lets me know, I will schedule it and you'll be able to see it on Facebook and YouTube. So, Alfred, great to have you here. Please get with me on when you want to come back on so we can update everyone on the NBA playoffs and your thoughts. But always great to have you here, my friend, and always great to have you here watching us at the Lakers Fast Break Podcast.